This is one of several watches dropped off by Greg several days ago. He wants this one inspected and an evaluation given. It's a nice looking Waltham with what is called a Henry S. Montgomery dial. These dials were introduced in the watch market in about 1910. The Santa Fe Railroad had been using these dials on their clocks since about 1900. This watch is a pendant set rather than lever set. Pulling the crown out to see how the hands set, I'm finding they don't want to move. A lot of resistance for some reason. For fear of damaging something, I won't force them to move anymore. Pushing the crown down to test how it winds, I find it also has a lot of resistance. I'm not going to force things here. It doesn't feel like it's wound tight, but more like something is causing too much resistance. Taking the back off, I see markings from when it was in for servicing, along with damage in the form of deep circular scratches. These scratches could be from screws that loosened up and were sticking up high enough to contact the back of the watch case. The outside of the case is in excellent condition. Rotating the movement, the balance wheel is free but reluctant to take off and move into good motion. As I attempt to wind the mainspring, there's just too much resistance. The click is engaging with the ratchet wheel correctly. But when I release the crown, the ratchet wheel doesn't snap into position like it should. It slowly moves to engage with the click. It's all gummed up. I'll get the hands off so I can get into the internals. Sure a nice dial. Oh, that came off easy. The second hand is quite loose on here. This slot milled in the case is for a lever set watch. Back when these movements were sold, Waltham didn't supply cases. You would pick out a movement and the case separate and have a jeweler case the movement for you. A lot has changed since these were popular. Attempting to let the mainspring down, I'm finding it's all gummed up. I'll need to manually let the mainspring down. Checking the ratchet wheel, it looks like all power is let down. Time to remove the movement. I see these two case screws don't match. One is a flat head and one is a pan head. Not a big deal, but just to point out details. Could be the first time this movement has been out in over 50 years. Here's some more mismatched screws. This bridge screw doesn't belong to this movement. It extends past the bridge plate surface. They should be flush or slightly below the bridge, like these two here. And this one here next to the ratchet wheel is sticking up as well. Rust pitting on the crown wheel, and the crown wheel screw is nicked from a dull screwdriver. This is why I choose to use beryllium screwdrivers wherever possible on high quality watches. Next to this bridge screw, I can see where someone slipped off it with a steel-bladed screwdriver. The nickel finish has been damaged from the screwdriver skipping across the face of the plate. Rust damage on the crown wheel. Most of the black jeweler's wax has been removed from all the embossed lettering. There's just a small chip here and there left. This was a big problem that began to be noticed in the 1950s when the ultrasonic cleaning machines were introduced into the watchmaking trade. Ultrasonics are superior cleaners, but on a watch, the softer materials sometimes suffer damage. These jewels look undamaged. There's a considerable amount of dirt in some of them. I'll loosen the hairspring stud before I remove the balance cock. Something's wrong with the screw slot. The screwdriver isn't getting a good bite on the screw. Good grief, the screw has been butchered. The screw slot should be nice and narrow and sharp like these two bridge screws here. It's like 3 times too wide, and the slot isn't centered on the screw head. Well, it didn't leave the factory this way. I'll have to position the screw on top of one of the movement holder posts. I'm going to need to use some heavy downward force on the screw to get it started. Well, got it loose, but the head isn't moving up high enough to be above the bridge. There's no way to grab it with the tweezers. The balance bridge moves up slightly, but the screw threads are still engaged with the front plate. I'll need to apply some upward pressure on the balance bridge, and at the same time, unscrew the screw. Okay, it's free now. Take a look at this butchered screw. The outside diameter of the screw has been worked over, and the screw slot has been filed into a V shape. What a mess someone left here. Well, I guess this guy decided to modify the screw to fit his dull screwdrivers, instead of sharpening the screwdriver. This balance cap jewel is a replacement. It has a punch mark on the brass, but no matching punch mark on the bridge, and one screw doesn't nest correctly into the brass jewel setting. The brass has been filed straight where the screw nests against it. Here on the underside of the bridge, someone has punched the metal. Some people would do this to adjust the bridge higher while fitting a replacement balance staff, rather than take the time to dress the end of the staff down. It's a quick fix for incorrect balance staff in-shake. This balance wheel isn't original to this movement. When these left the factory, each balance wheel was matched with a movement. The serial number of the movement was always inscribed on the underside of the balance arm. The serial number doesn't match the number on the movement. The balance wheel screws have been filed while poising the wheel. They don't come from the factory like this. There are other ways to lighten balance screws than this that don't deface the screws. Here where the balance bridge fits against the front plate, there's signs of where the metal has been deformed in an attempt to adjust the balance staff in-shake. Work this pallet fork back and forth to make sure all the power is let down on the mainspring. To remove the dial, there's 3 screws that need to be loosened. I see it's missing one of the dial screws. The back side of the dial has some excess dried oil here. Very nice dial. More excess oil. The hour wheel seems to be stuck. I'll need to rotate it with a slight upward motion to break it free. Not sure where it was hanging up at. The minute wheel. Now the cannon pinion. Oil is so gummy, it's like glue when the screwdriver is placed next to it. Looks like it's safe to remove the pallet fork now. I've seen people remove these with full power on the mainspring. All of a sudden release of power can damage the escape wheel pivots. This bridge is original to the movement because the serial number on the back matches the movement. The pallet fork looks good. Montgomery oil on this crown wheel screw. This crown wheel washer is gummed up real bad. This is where some of the resistance was coming from. On the tweezers, it's almost like chewing gum. The crown wheel is stuck on as well. I'll need to use a prying motion to break it free. What a gummy mess. The finish on the screw should be like a mirror. It's got a brushed finish on it. Someone has sanded these to remove rust pits and didn't put back on the original polished finish. Since the escape wheel is incorporated into this bridge, it's called a unified bridge. Not all these 624s had unified bridges on them. The escape wheel looks good. The jewels are covered with dried oil, but look okay so far. Center wheel looks good. Fourth wheel looks good. Third wheel looks okay. These jewels look to be in good shape. Oh, the third wheel jewel is damaged. It's chipped and has several cracks running through it. This is typical damage caused by misaligned pivots while assembling a watch. It should be replaced, or it'll damage the pivot. Remove the barrel bridge, Montgomery oil, mainspring barrel has some rust spots on it. Let's take a look inside the mainspring barrel. Just as I suspected, Montgomery oil. The mainspring is stuck together like glue. Well, it's time to give my results to Greg and see how he wants to proceed on this movement.